Now, let's be real, Marvel Rivals is one of those games where one mistake snowballs into an entire lost fight, and chances are you're making mistakes you don't even notice. And today, well, I'm breaking down 7 more bad habits that keep players stuck. And if you catch yourself doing these habits, don't worry, the fixes are simple, but they'll instantly level up your gameplay. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. But one last thing, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. We're going for 20,000 subscribers before my birthday in September, so I would gladly appreciate it. It would be the best birthday present ever. But anyways, back to the video. Now, our first bad habit or mistake that I see a ton of players make, whether it's from bronze all the way up to some eternity level player, that bad habit is overhealing or overpeeling. As a support, sometimes you tunnel vision on a teammate who's, already safe. Meanwhile, the rest of the team is dying behind you. And this is certainly the case depending on, of course, what team composition you're running. And in my opinion, there's kind of a queue depending on who should be getting healed first. Now, of course, teammates who are critical HP have the flash pass. They get that, excessive healing. They get that instant healing. After that critical teammate gets that so desperately needed healing, then I would look to your other strategist or your other healer. Does your secondary healer need heals? If yes, then go ahead and heal them, because there's always that chance a stray shot, a stray flank, anything might just get rid of that secondary healer and you're on your own. Then after your secondary healer is healed up, you would then look at your vanguards, because in my opinion, they're a lot more important than your DPS. But with that being said, it depends on what DPS heroes you have. If you have a DPS hero like Hela or Hawkeye, they need all the care in the world, so you're just going to be perma healing them. It's pretty boring, but that's just what it is. And depending on what type of duelist, again, you're running, they should be able to go out of their own way, get their health packs if they need it or not. In my opinion, strategists should always be focusing on the other support and the vanguards. Of course, if the DPS is low, they're ulting, or they need extra care, then by all means heal them, but the priority should be supports, vanguards, then duelists. So how exactly do we fix this bad habit of where we're tunnel visioning as a support on a teammate who's already safe? Besides applying what I've kind of previously said in your priority list, you should always try to spread your focus, heal or peel where it matters most, not just where it feels comfortable. Awareness beats tunnel vision. Having more information on what's happening around you is always going to be the better option. And just a quick note, both your duelist and your vanguard players should be in front of you when you're playing a strategist. You never want to be in front of them, no matter the case, unless you're ulting, of course, but for the most part, you're always in the back line, just far enough to where you're not getting damaged by the enemy duelists, but close enough that where your vanguards can peel for your backline if need be. Now, another big, massive bad habit that I see no matter what rank it is ignoring the high ground. You're stuck brawling on the low ground while the enemy DPS or duelist farms your team from above. Now, I've been saying this since the dawn of the beginning of this game, and quite frankly, I was saying this back in Overwatch 1 as well. In hero shooters, high ground, especially in a third-person shooter, high ground is very, very important. And what I found is that it's a lot harder for people to aim vertically, especially when they have to vertically aim upwards. That's kind of what I've noticed. And while yourself, when you have the high ground, you typically don't have to do that move. You don't have to vertically aim upwards. Vice versa, you have to vertically aim downwards, which is a little bit easier than going upwards. Of course, that's my own personal preference. And it seems like a lot of personal preference of a lot of people that I've known that are big in the aiming community, but that's just kind of how it goes. Now, that's besides the point. Because Marvel Rivals is a third-person shooter, when you have the high ground, you have information. You can see where all the enemies are, you can see what routes they're taking, you can see what they're planning to do, and you can see what they're trying to accomplish. Again, having the high ground equals information. And in a game like a hero shooter like Marvel Rivals, information is very important. It's about how your team is going to react to different situations, how you're going to pre-plan a fight, how you're going to pre-plan ultimates, and how are you going to take fights differently. So how exactly do we fix the habit of ignoring the high ground? Well, high ground, again, is free value. You want to take it when you can, contest it when you must, and never let enemies sit above you uncontested. And you probably notice this when you leave a Hela or a Phoenix or a Hawkeye, a Black Widow uncontested in a high ground position. you feel like you can't really do anything because it seems like those characters know exactly where you're moving 24/7. So how do we fix this bad habit of ignoring the high ground? First, if that high ground is open, go ahead, take that high ground. Try to get to that high ground as fast as possible. If there's an enemy on a high ground, like a Hela, like a Phoenix, like a Hawkeye, like a Black Widow, any of these characters that thrive on the high ground, then certainly swap to some sort of a dive composition. Take that high ground by force. Shove the enemy off of it, and then place your own, hit scan duelist or vanguard that's going to dominate on that spot. Because the longer you leave that high ground space uncontested, the enemy is going to get enormous value on your entire team. That's why pressuring it or doing whatever you can to try to kick that person out of the high ground is going to be a must. And that's essentially how you get past this bad habit of ignoring the high ground. Again, it's something that hopefully a lot of people know by now, but it's always a good thing to keep this in mind while playing the game. And if you have your own bad habits, let me know what they are in the comments down below, and I can reply to them, try to help you out with the bad habit, or you can check out some of my coaching. Links are in the description for my Fiverr, or you can send me a Gmail message or whatever. Now moving on to our third bad habit, even I do this still sometimes, and that's forgetting to play corners. You stand out in the open, trading into multiple sight lines, and honestly wonder why you keep dying so fast. You forget that Marvel Rivals sometimes, even though it's right there, is a third-person shooter over the right-hand shoulder. You're like, cool, but what does this really mean? Well, you always want to keep cover or some type of wall on your left shoulder. That means you can sit behind the wall and still peek over the corner. This is especially true for characters like Hawkeye, who can charge up their arrow behind cover without the enemies even seeing them. You can pre-charge a Bucky hook, peek out, instantly hook an enemy. This is great for pretty much every single character in the entire game, and it's something that I need to keep in mind while playing Marvel Rivals as well. Now when it comes to solving this problem, you want to use corners like a second ability. You duck in and out of sight lines, force enemies to chase into bad angles, and make yourself a lot harder to hit. Again, I find myself not using corners to my advantage a lot of the time, and it's something that you just have to get used to. Now, this is something you could say all the way at the very beginning of this game, when it first came out back in December, but even to this day, I still have this bad habit, so just try to keep that in mind while you're playing the game. Try to use that cover as best as you can, and try to play to your own sightlines and your own team's strengths. Because a majority of the time, while you're behind cover, you can see the enemies and the enemies can't see you. But you also have to keep in mind that the enemies you're playing against, if they know the same trick to look over the right shoulder, then they're probably doing the same thing. So you also have to expect that as well. Now moving on to our fourth bad habit, that's not tracking cooldowns or even tracking ultimates. For example, you dive a Loki, looking to quickly eliminate a super strong strategist and a super high priority character, but last you run into Loki's regeneration domain where he's immune and quite possibly has damage boost to completely delete you. This is where communication and talking to your team is super impactful and super important. Now, I understand, not a lot of people like to talk in this game. I completely understand because people are super toxic, that's a reality. But even if you don't want to necessarily talk about what's happening in the game, at least try to give a calm on those cooldowns. Whether it's Loki's regeneration domain, Adam Warlock's soul bonds, Mantis sleep, Luna's freeze, whatever it might be, some information is better than none at all. The second you get that information, it should automatically click into your brain that, okay, I have to wait a little bit before I dive in, or this is the perfect chance to strike. Either option, it's going to be ending in a better result. Now, knowing cooldowns for strategists isn't only extremely helpful, but knowing cooldowns for other characters as well, like duelists, is also extremely impactful. For example, Iron Fist. When Iron Fist dives you or dives your backline, he's going to have a block. That block lasts for 1 second. Then after that block, he gets that extra bit of HP, but the cooldown is 15 seconds. That means you have a 15-second window to get rid of the Iron Fist because he doesn't have that block to get HP back or absorb damage. Another great character is Doctor Strange, Emma Frost. When the Doctor Strange uses his teleport, it's 180 seconds, so about 3-ish minutes. So you can calculate when you need a TP and if they have their TP up. If they TP at the very beginning of a convoy or convergence map, right at the opening of the gates, then they will have it towards the very end of the first point if you manage to hold it the entire duration, so you have to worry about 2 TPs. Vice versa, if they let it go for a little bit and decide to TP back like in the second fight, then you don't have to worry about a TP at the very end for a last second touch. Also, another major cooldown to keep in mind is Emma Frost when she uses her diamond form. After she uses her diamond form, it's about a 15-second cooldown again, just like Iron Fist. That's your moment to strike. That's your moment to Bucky Hooker, to grab her as Emma, your own Emma, to use any forms of crowd control effects so you can easily take care of the Emma Frost. That's why breaking this habit and trying to get into a good habit of calling cooldowns is a very major and important factor.
Now moving on to our 5th bad habit, and that's blowing defensive cooldowns way too early. Now you panic shield, heal, or bubble at the start of a fight, then when the real damage hits, you got nothing left. And let's be honest, if you're playing a strategist, you've probably been in the same exact situation where you have a Black Panther or some type of diving duelist diving onto you as you're playing Loki or Adam Warlock, and you go ahead and use your runes or your regeneration domain, or you use your soul bond a little bit too early, so the dive succeeds and well, you end up getting eliminated. Sometimes it's better to save those major cooldowns for when things are actually useful or when it's actually important to use. Most of the times you want to save your defensive tools for impact. You don't use them just because you got poked. You want to wait for burst windows where they're actually saving lives. Now trust me, a lot of players have been in the same exact boat. Whether you're playing Cloak and Dagger or you're playing, again, Loki, Adam Warlock, you're just taking a little chip damage and you want to go ahead and throw your Dagger Storm, which is a right click on Dagger to heal yourself up. Or you're playing Loki and you want to use the regeneration domain the second you take just a little bit of damage. But you do have to factor, those abilities are game changers in team fights. Especially Loki's regeneration domain. They can save you from a lot of ultimates in this game, so using it or think of it as another Luna Snow ultimate is going to be your best option. Just like if you were using Luna Snow's ultimate, you want to kind of use Loki's regeneration domain in a similar sense. Saving it for ultimates, saving it for huge burst damage, saving it when it ultimately matters, because if you just use it to heal yourself up, you're wasting one of the biggest and most impactful abilities in the entire game. And if you find yourself getting poked down and you need to heal yourself, you want to think about where you're actually positioning. Are you positioning yourself in a spot that's going to be easy to see for the enemies? Are you in really bad line of sight of your other strategist or your other healer? And again, are you in open line of sight that the enemy have perfect vision on you so that they can poke you down? These are all factors you have to consider when you're playing characters that have those big sustain abilities. So again, just want to reiterate, to fix this habit of wasting cooldowns to heal yourself up from poke damage, you want to think about your positioning, where you are to your other strategists. Are you behind your vanguard? Are you in a place where you don't have line of sight of the enemies, but still have full line of sight of your teammates? Because that's going to result in the best outcomes for all of your healing to be the most effective. Now, for a 6th bad habit is a habit I see from all the way from bronze up to eternity in high elo lobbies, and that's feeding for ult charge. You think, I'll just touch point and stall, but all you're really doing is giving the enemy free ult percentage. What you want to be doing is you want to pick your stalls wisely. Sometimes it's worth it, but if the fight is already lost, don't feed resources that make the next fight even harder. There's a saying, when, your team gets wiped, you're the last one on point. It's better to go quickly die so you don't get staggered and this prolong the fight so your team has to wait longer to regroup. You want to quickly either get out or, go get yourself eliminated. You don't want to keep doing this trickle fighting and keep giving them more ult charge when they don't need it. There's a lot of instances where fights are completely lost. You're down 3 and you think if popping one of your ultimates is gonna, win you the fight. In reality, that ultimate won't do anything. It will keep you alive, sure, but it will inevitably give the enemy team more ult charge because they can farm more damage off of you. These are things a lot of people have to keep an account for that not a lot of players actually do. So again, you always want to pick and choose your stalls wisely. For example, if you're playing a domination and you manage to capture the first point,
The whole idea after capturing the first point of domination is to stall it for as long as you can to about 99%, because after you get to that 99%, all you need is one fight to flip it and get the 100%. Typically that's why you stall for domination. Although you do feed them all charge, it's better to go for that one fight win than risk getting completely wiped off the face of the earth, if that kind of makes sense. Now last but certainly not least of our 7th bad habit of this episode is ignoring flank routes. You're so focused on the front line that you forget that a Psylocke, Spider-Man, a Black Panther are wrapping around. Suddenly your team's backline is instantly deleted. What you want to be doing is always keeping mental notes of flank routes. A quick turn or a pre-placed trap can shut down a whole flank play. Again, Marvel Rivals is a 6v6 hero shooter. That means there's 6 enemies. If you're fighting a 5v6 with your 6 teammates fighting on the front line with you, and you only see 5 enemies and you notice that one of the missing heroes is a duelist that goes ahead and flanks, then they're probably, well, flanking like a Black Panther, a Psylocke, a Spider-Man, any other flanking character in this game, even a Namor. If you see that character is missing in front of you, chances are they're probably going on a flank, and you want to keep a mental note of that and try to remember what flank routes they're taking. A habit that a lot of players have in this game is that they will use the same flank route multiple times. When that happens, you can easily exploit that. Whether it's predicting when they're going to appear from that same spot, setting up traps like your own Namor traps, a penny mine, whatever it may be. Understanding those key routes is what makes the difference between a semi-good player to an incredible player. And that was 7 bad habits you should be looking out for in Marvel Rivals. Let me know what your bad habit is in the comments down below, and I can maybe help you fix that habit. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It greatly helps out the channel, keeps me making these videos. Besides that, I hope you have a great and safe day, and I'll catch you in the next one.